Hello, I'm Avi Lewis. Welcome to On the Map. The New Colossus, that famous poem by Emma Lazarus carved on the Statue of Liberty, can only be read ironically in the midst of the current raging debate about immigration in the U.S. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, and they'll be denounced as criminal, alien, diseased queue jumpers. Later, we'll try to get behind the race-baiting rhetoric and look at some of the reasons why so many people in the Americas are headed north. But first, let's take a look at the immigration bill that's unleashing a storm of self-righteous outrage south of the border. It all started with the Grand Compromise, a bipartisan bill to fix the U.S. immigration system once and for all. The most contentious provision is the treatment of 12 million U.S. residents who are there illegally. The bill offers them a so-called pathway to legalization. That process was instantly branded an amnesty by conservative opponents, and the U.S. news cycle has been virtually wallpapered with that language for weeks.
Amnesty.
Amnesty.
Amnesty. Amnesty.
Amnesty.
This new version of amnesty?
Is amnesty an accurate term? Here's the Webster's Dictionary definition. 1, a period during which offenders are exempt from punishment, or 2, a warrant granting release from punishment for an offense. Okay, now let's look at the so-called amnesty agenda and see if that's what it does. First, an undocumented worker comes out of the shadows, gets fingerprinted, background checked, and immediately deported if there are any crimes or misdemeanors on record. Next, fines and fees of up to $9,000 for a family of 4. Then the person can get in line behind the backlog of millions who have applied legally, a wait of at least 8 years. There is obviously an amnesty agenda, an agenda to call this torturous process an amnesty. Led by CNN's Lou Dobbs, who is losing it live on a daily basis, the portrayal of immigrants has been harsh. From morning to night, they're jumping fences and being arrested. They're bringing disease, crime, and gang warfare, and stealing jobs and Social Security. The message is clear. These people are an alien invasion.
These people.
These people.
These people.
These people.
All these illegal immigrants.
Those that didn't respect the laws.
Those who shouldn't be here.
Someone who was here illegally.
The illegal aliens.
If the government can't do simple border security, then what is the role of government?
Now, even supporters of the bill say that it's far from perfect, but a calm conversation about its relative merits is pretty tough to find these days. So to attempt that now, I'm joined by Doug Rivlin of the National Immigration Forum. He's in Washington. Doug Rivlin, welcome to On the Map.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with the very latest news. The immigration bill has been revived now. Its fortunes revived by President Bush weighing in, supporting an amendment to spend $4.4 billion up front on the fence, on securing the border, quote unquote, with the money to be taken from fines on undocumented workers. Doug, as a progressive supporter of this legislation, what message does that send?
Well, the bill needed to get unstuck. I'm not even sure that did it. They were very close to having an agreement between the Republican and Democratic senators when the bill came down on June 7th. So I think that whatever gets it going forward is a good step right now.
We've been taking a look at the immigrant bashing in the mainstream media in the U.S., and we haven't even touched the Minutemen, the vigilantes, the crackdowns at the border. Is there anything that this law can do to undo the poisonous atmosphere that now exists around immigration in the United States?
Well, there's a small minority in the country, maybe 15 to 25%, who really want to end immigration and see immigration as the root of all problems. They're very vocal. They're very mobilized. They're very angry. They really feel that their country's being taken over by people who aren't good enough to live here. I don't think that they really represent very much of society, even though they have loud megaphones.
Almost everyone on the spectrum supporting this bill is in some way holding their noses to do so. So you've got this broad coalition of the Wall Street Journal to progressive groups and everything in between. You've got to make the case for why this deeply flawed bill needs to be passed.
The case for why this needs to move forward is that the status quo is just unacceptable. People dying in the desert, people being exploited in the workplace, unscrupulous employers undercutting other employers. So while we don't love everything about this bill as it stands right now, we think it's critical that it move forward, because then if it doesn't, we're looking at perhaps another 2 years, perhaps another 8 years until we really see some progress on immigration reform.
There is this temporary worker program where 400,000 workers a year will come work for 2 years, go back for a year, come back, work for 2 years, go back for a year. It doesn't lead to an application for permanent citizenship for them or their families. How is that good for immigrant workers in the United States?
I don't think it is. In terms of coming for 2 years, going home for a year, I mean, businesses hate it, labor unions hate it, immigrants hate it. It's not something that we think is really workable. Quite frankly, what's going to happen is that people are going to come, they're going to stay for 2 years, then they're going to burrow underground. And then we've got a growing undocumented population, which is what we're trying to avoid.
The anti-immigration agenda, the sort of Lou Dobbs take on things, combines a sort of traditional xenophobia with progressive-sounding language which is sort of economic populist about the war on the middle class, about greedy employers using precarious immigrant workers to drive down the wages of other parts of American society. Can you unpack those things for us?
If you're concerned about the American worker, if you're concerned about the growth of the American economy, if you are concerned about prosperity throughout American society, then you should be for comprehensive immigration reform that puts immigration back on a legal footing. We want to have people protected by labor rights. We want them coming with a visa rather than a smuggler. We want them using their own name rather than someone else's or someone else's social security number. And what the strategy has been for the last couple of decades, quite frankly, is to make legal immigration as difficult as possible for everyone and impossible for most people. And then you rail against the illegalities. But what we need to do is put it back on a legal footing so that we can be able to control it, and so that we have a regulatory regime that matches with the real labor market realities.
Doug Rivlin, thanks for being on The Map.
Thank you.